Okay, welcome back, everybody.
Hello,
Hello.
hello.
Welcome to what are we on? This is day 15. So this would be our 18th speaker now, and happy to have Liz Gray with us. Liz today, as you all know, is going to be speaking on search engine marketing as well as data analytics, specifically Google Analytics. And I'm happy to have Liz. She's been part of Leap In for the last, I think, 4. Is this round number 5 for you?
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yes. This is amazing. It's amazing that you keep offering your time each and every year. We really appreciate it. Liz is one of my favorite professors from the Lawrence Kinlan School of Business, and she brings a great energy here. And I'm really happy to have her explain some things that if I've had other people help teach me AdWords and analytics, but I don't think anybody does it quite like you. I had Jen and Maya here earlier this week, and originally in the schedule they were going to be right after you, and they made me put you after them because they were afraid that you might show them up. So I'm really excited that you're going to be here. Everybody, make sure you've got pen, paper, you're taking notes. Remember, we are recording this because there's going to be a lot of nuggets dropped here. So Liz, the floor is yours. You have control, so take it away. And if you want to introduce yourself a little bit more formally, go right ahead.
Awesome. Okay. Can everyone hear me okay? It's good. Yeah. Awesome. Great. Well, nice to meet everybody. And thank you so much for having me today. I'm, as David said, a faculty member in the Lawrence Kinlan School of Business. I've been there for 20 years and I teach Google Ads, Google Analytics, and search engine optimization. But today, the 2 topics on the drawing board are Google Ads and Analytics. So we'll spend approximately an hour on each, and we'll keep it really informal today. And please, just anytime you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself or chat or whatever the best way. David said he'd keep an eye on the chat for me and let me know if there were questions. But feel free to interrupt me at any time because you will have questions along the way, and it makes most sense to address them at that moment in time. Okay. So we are going to start with the Google Ads platforms. So David, the students have had a session in SEO. Is that correct?
Yeah, just like a brief overview, and then I have a manual I'm giving them this week as well. So they've had a bit of an introduction to it, yes.
Okay, cool. So maybe somebody in the crowd can tell me what are the disadvantages of relying solely on organic web traffic as a search engine acquisition strategy? What's the disadvantage of sort of putting all of your eggs in that basket? David?
Not as fast growth.
What's that?
Not as fast growth.
Okay, yes. So absolutely there's some latency. So any SEO tactics that you employ to rank organically on Google and other search engines, there certainly is going to be some latency there. If we work on a technical SEO project, we tell clients never expect any results in the first 6 months. And so your ability to sort of climb the ranks and rank for the keywords that you want to rank for can take a long time. So absolutely. Anything else? How many, so Jared, for J.R. Welding, for example, how many keywords would you like to rank for your business? How many different keyword derivatives do you think exist out there?
Probably quite a few, at least welding, fabrication, manufacturing.
Tons. The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
And then there's different combinations of those words, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So your target audience is using tons of different ways to find you. So think about a used car dealership as an example. So people might search on used Honda Civic, pre-owned blue Honda Civic, manual Honda Civic, 2016 Honda Civic. For some businesses, the list of keywords that you want to rank for could be in the tens of thousands. Never let anybody tell you that you are going to be able to be on page one for every single derivative keyword permutation that people are using to try to find you. It is not possible. So that's reason number 2. And reason number 3 is when you engage solely in SEO, you are at the mercy of Google and its secretive algorithm. There are hundreds of moving parts in that PageRank algorithm that Google uses to determine whether your website is number 1 or whether it's number 1,000 for eco-friendly dinnerware, for example. And you might be number 1 for that keyword tomorrow, and then the following day, you might all of a sudden be number 100 and you've dropped off of page 1, drastically impacting your revenue if you're relying on being found in organic search engines. And you might not have any idea why. Google's never going to send you a note and say, you know, by the way, you were number 1, now you're number 100, and this is why. You have no idea, and you've got to spend time figuring out why the algorithm has penalized you, and sometimes you'll never know. So it's a very, very dangerous game to play if search engine traffic is the way you want to acquire business. And for some companies, it doesn't make sense to even really worry about search engine traffic. So let's take the example of maybe a brand new product that customers aren't even aware of. If customers aren't aware that you exist or aren't aware that your product vertical exists, then they don't know to look for you. And if they don't know to look for you, then they're not typing in your keywords, and therefore search engines doesn't make sense as a traffic acquisition strategy. Maybe social media, maybe email campaigns, something else might make sense for your business. So I'm not here to suggest that what we're talking about today will work for everybody and is suitable for everybody. But if you can answer the question, I want to be found on search engines, and I know that people are looking for me online, but I don't have visibility on page 1, then the first part of today's session is absolutely very relevant to you, because I'm going to show you how to mitigate the risks of relying solely on the organic side of the page. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And so, all right. So do you see the word Zoom?
We do.
Okay, perfect. All right, that's my secondary screen. Perfect. So I've got a bunch of tabs open here that I'm going to flick between, and we're just going to go ahead and have a casual conversation of what search engine marketing is, and then we're going to actually get into the ads platform. And I'm going to use I've got many computers open here to refresh my memory. I'm going to use Eco Palm Leaves as my primary demo here. Is the owner of that company online today?
Liz?
Yes.
Unfortunately, Chintan couldn't be here today. He had something quite pressing come up, so he is not. I'm so
that
sorry.
happens to me all the time. Every session I run, I choose my guinea pig, and they are often not in the crowd. But you guys will
recorded, so people see it, and we're all quite familiar with his business. So
okay, perfect. And then if somebody else wants to jump in, and we can, certainly use other examples as we go to. But please don't be afraid to jump in and ask me to change gears. So, all right. So what you see in front of you is the SERP, the search engine results page for Google. We primarily talk about Google. I teach Google Ads. I teach Google Analytics. Why don't I focus on other search engines? Well, we know that in Canada, Google has 90-some-odd% share of search. And so if you're going to do any advertising, we always suggest that you start with Google. It's where you're going to get the vast majority of volume. It's where you're going to see results first. It's where you're going to be able to weed out what works, what doesn't. And then you can always morph your campaigns over into other search engines. It's not to be said that you're not going to get good value and good return on investment by advertising on Bing, for example, but the volume just isn't there in Canada. So that's why we focus primarily on Google. Okay, so I want to just go over what the page looks like. And certainly your SERP will not look the same as mine if you have an ad blocker on. A lot of my students have usually come into my class with ad blockers, and I make them immediately turn them off because obviously we are learning about the advertising platform. And our ad blocker is a big deal. Among some demographics they are, but certainly there are many target audiences that don't even know what an ad blocker is. So is this an issue? No. And I always start every single one of my Google Ads classes by asking the crowd, what was Google's revenue last year? Does anybody know what their top line revenue was in 2019?
Don't be shy, guys. Just make a guess.
Yeah, take a guess.
Tens of billions.
Yeah, you're right. Tens of billions. And the number is sort of escaping me right now, but I don't know. Maybe David, you could do a quick search. Is it like not 90 billion or something in that range?
Or are you looking just ad revenue or all revenue?
No, all revenue, total revenue. Something like that, 120 billion. I don't know. It's some
134.8 billion.
Oh my Lord. $134 billion in revenue Google made last year. Does anybody know what portion of that revenue comes from these ads on Google?
Let's see.
I'm gonna guess like 80% of it.
Yeah, you're very close. Was that Andres? You're very close. It's in the vicinity of about 85%. Does anybody know, when does Google get paid for these ads?
When someone clicks on them.
Yes, it is a pay-per-click advertising system. So if you think that people, A, aren't seeing these ads because they've got blockers on, and or B, they're not clicking on these ads because they think they're spammy, then you're 85% of $134 billion wrong. So I always like to start my sessions with that piece of information, because I find that the demographic of the students that I'm usually teaching are very skeptical of online advertising, but that doesn't mean that everybody is. And it doesn't mean that everybody's got ad blockers on, that nobody's clicking on these ads. It represents a massive amount of revenue for Google. And then the next question students always say is, okay, fine, people click on the ads, but do they work? And if you take a look at how Google's ad revenue has grown in the last 20 years, it's completely exponential and off the charts in terms of year-over-year growth. And I will tell you that companies would have stopped spending money on this traffic acquisition strategy years ago if it wasn't delivering a positive return on investment. Everything online is totally trackable back to the originating click. So if somebody sees your ad, clicks on the ad, lands on your website, browses around, leaves the website, comes back 10 days later via a totally different channel and spends money with you, that money can be tracked back to the keyword that originally sent the traffic 10 days prior. So you're able as a business to say, okay, look, I spent $100 last week on Google Ads. What did that give me in revenue? And you can see it down to the penny. So it's not like we're advertising and making these decisions with no information. It's a very data-rich system. And so there would be no reason why businesses would continue to spend money on this acquisition strategy if it wasn't working. So that sort of sets the tone in terms of like, why are we even talking about this advertising platform? Because it works. If you take a look at the SERP that's in front of you right now, you can see that this line down here, you can see all my junk too. I've always got tons of junk on my, you can see here that this line here below which I need to scroll. So whenever you need to scroll, that means that you have gone below the fold. So in an ideal world, an organization would have visibility for their business above the fold on the search engine results page on page 1. That's where you're going to get the vast majority of your clicks, is if you can find yourself above the fold. And notice that there is nothing organic above the fold here. everything that you see above the fold on a search for eco-friendly dinnerware is entirely advertising. I have to come down, I have to scroll down to see my first organic listing of bamboohome.com. That's our first organic listing. This is all what we call organic or natural listings. These are websites that have ranked well because they are engaging in search engine optimization strategies on an ongoing basis. Everything above the fold, these 4 ads here, and all of these PLAs, we call them product listing ads or shopping ads, those are all ads. So the minute I click here, that's when Google gets paid by the organization. And we'll talk about how the cost is determined a little bit later in the session. So it's another great example as to, like, you know, you can spend all of your time worrying about SEO and like fighting this page rank algorithm and, you know, beating your head against the wall trying to figure out what Google wants. Or you can, while you're trying to gain rank, spend some money on the advertising side so that you do get visibility above the fold. Now, the one thing to remember is that it is a beautiful, very user-friendly advertising platform that's easy to learn, easy to use, but it's also really super easy to blow money really quickly. And so I heard Jared say things like, yeah, I would want to rank for the word fabrication and manufacturing and so forth. And we're going to talk today about how to choose keywords effectively and to stay away from the keywords that maybe have too many connotations and will not drive the most qualified traffic for you.
Yeah,
So
I see where that goes around.
Yeah, totally. So we'll talk about how to choose your keywords and how to figure out the ones that are actually going to drive the revenue for you. Okay, so I just want to go through, and again, jump in with any questions here, but I just want to go through sort of the anatomy of an ad before we actually get into the platform so that I can show you how it works. So let's take partytrends.ca as an example. You'll see that their ad looks quite different from the ad below them for palmnakiplates.com for this one. And then this one looks a little bit different. And so we'll talk about, like, how do these guys get totally different looking ads? So partytrends.ca has its base ad that includes what's called your headline. And so today you have the opportunity to craft 3 headlines at 30 characters each, including spaces. And usually only 2 will trigger, but sometimes 3 will. So I can only find examples of all of these ads only have 2 headlines that have triggered. So for this one here, our first headline is Palm Naki official site. And then our second one is palm leaf plates. The third one has not triggered. Sometimes Google will give you some added characters here if you have a third headline in your ad. I'll show you that in a minute when we get into the platform. So these guys have 2 headlines, and then you get into what's called your description. So here is their description. It starts with stylish and ends with prices. And you have 2 description lines at 90 characters each, so 180 characters to work with in total. And you'll see here that this is their description here for this one, and then this guy has a description, but notice that it's truncated with an ellipsis here. So Google has elected to only give them 1 description line, not 2 description lines. So they probably wrote a whole bunch more in their ad, but Google's not giving them that space. And we'll talk about why in a sec. So let's come up to what is this? What is this here? This contact us and this plastic salad bowls. How does that fit into the ad? Because these guys don't have that added screen real estate. This is what's called extensions. So Google offers you the ability to occupy more screen real estate by giving you the opportunity to add things like site links extensions. These are just links to deeper pages in your website that you can add to your ad account. And if you qualify, then you might get this added screen real estate. And added screen real estate is always a bonus because the more space you occupy, the further your competition gets pushed down the page. So it's always a good idea to input as many extensions as you possibly can into your account. And if you're eligible, then Google will trigger them for you. So next comes the question. Oh, and this is another example of an extension here. This is a phone extension. And if you see a phone extension on a mobile device, you just have to click it and it clicks to call. It's obviously not the case on my computer here, but if I was showing you a mobile device, it would be. So what do it doesn't matter where you click here, you're spending the same amount of money, your same cost per click. And we'll talk about how that's tabulated in a sec. So back to the question, why does this guy get so much more screen real estate than this guy below him? Well, Google calculates for every advertiser something called ad rank. An ad rank is the combination of two things, your quality score and your maximum bid. So let's deal with quality score first. Quality score is based on how Google determines your relevance to the keyword that you're bidding on. So it's going to take a look at the keyword that you bid on, eco-friendly dinnerware, for example, and it's going to say, okay, you've been bidding on that for the last 6 months. When we rank your ad on the search engine results page, how many times do people actually click on your ad? Or in other words, what's your click-through rate? Of the times we give you an impression, we show your ad, what percentage of the time do you get clicked on? That's a searcher's way of telling Google that they like what they see. If Google shows your ad 100 times and nobody ever clicks on it, that's sending a signal to Google that there's something wrong with your ad. It's not relevant, it wasn't compelling enough, it wasn't competitive, somebody didn't like. And so do you think Google's gonna show you as high on the page anymore if nobody ever clicks on your ad? No, because they're not making money. They don't like ads that don't get clicks. So you're gonna slowly fall down the page and your ad might not even show at all if your click-through rate isn't high enough. There are other elements to quality score, but click-through rate is one of the most important elements. So when I show you how to set up your ads account, you're always keeping that in mind. Am I doing everything possible to achieve the most amount of clicks on my ad? So there's lots of strategies that we'll talk about today because it's really important in getting your ad to show. This is what prevents the Toyotas and the Coca-Colas and the Microsofts and the Amazons of the world from bidding on every single term that exists out there. Like Amazon's got deep enough pockets to bid on terms like Donald Trump and Britney Spears and whatever, words that have nothing to do with their business, just to get brand exposure. Like, why wouldn't a brand just want to be seen as many times as possible if they could? Well, Google doesn't allow that because it's totally irrelevant. If I go to Google and I type in what's happening in Buckingham Palace, I don't want to see an ad for Amazon. This makes no sense. It's not what I was after. I'm going to stop using Google if they keep doing that to me, right? So the quality of your ad and the relevance to the keyword that you have bid on are the most important thing to remember when you are advertising. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of money. Your ad's not going to show. Your quality score is going to be damaged, and you're not going to have a good account that performs well. So that's number one. So Google obviously, this guy obviously has a really favorable quality score, but his rank on the page is determined by quality score and his bid. So for every keyword that you want, you need to bid on that keyword because this is an auction style advertising platform. So Party Trends would have had to say, okay, we want the word eco-friendly dinnerware and we're willing to bid $1 maximum cost per click for that word. So Google takes that bid and it takes their quality score and it tabulates an ad rank. And if that ad rank is higher than all of these guys, then that's when Party Trends becomes number one on the page. So it's a combination of two things. You can never be shut out of the auction by price alone. And that's why I love the system, because it incorporates that quality. Does anybody have any questions up to this point?
I think Christine does because she typed one to me.
Okay, cool.
I was eating, that's why I have my video off. But yeah, Liz, does YouTube measure the traffic similarly or play ad like the SEO in terms of SEO?
Yeah. Okay. So from an SEO perspective, yes, YouTube has its own algorithm that it uses to determine which videos should rank. And that's sort of a separate topic. But from an advertising perspective, yes, all YouTube ads go through the Google Ads platform. So when we get in there, I'll show you how to set up a YouTube video campaign. And you know that when you're on YouTube, sometimes you see video ads and sometimes you see text ads that are overlaid on videos. There are all kinds of different formats that we can advertise on YouTube. And yes, it is all run through the same platform that I'm about to show you. And it works in the same way in terms of quality score, cost per click, and so forth. It's just a different network. And I'll illustrate that to you. Good question.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so we understand basically like how the system works, how Google determines whether your ads should show, why some ads look different than others in terms of screen real estate and so forth. This system over here, these PLA or shopping ads, similar to Christine's question about YouTube, they are a different category of ads that I'll show you in a second. It's sort of like a different, whole different system setup to utilize this than it is to utilize this. These are called regular text ads, and that's how we're going to spend most of our time taking a look at this today. But PLAs can work beautifully. I've seen like crazy return on investment on PLAs, so it's definitely something to look into if you are selling a physical product that has a picture that can be displayed. That's the only time that you're able to take advantage of this side of the SERP. Okay, so this part of the SERP down here, as David said, you've already had a basic intro session to SEO. So we're not going to talk about this part of the SERP today, although I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have left over from your SEO section. I'm not here to tell you that SEO doesn't work. I love SEO, love tech SEO. It's like a puzzle that you're constantly trying to solve. But I am here to tell you it's extremely time consuming. People love to say, oh, well, SEO is free. I'm going to do SEO instead of paid ads, SEM up here, because I don't pay for clicks down here. Well, yeah, you're right. You don't pay for clicks, but it's absolutely not free. You spend an enormous amount of time and energy trying to work your way up and maintain your organic rank. And as I said at the beginning of the session, it's impossible to do that for every single keyword permutation that pertains to your business. It's just not possible. So in the meantime, to gain visibility and start to get some traction, paying to be there can work if it's done properly. The other question that students always have for me is this side of the page related to this side in any way? Like if I spend more money up here, will I get preferential treatment down here? And the short answer is no, absolutely not. Like if you spend $1 million on ads, Google doesn't, call up the SEO team and say, hey, we got $1 million coming in here on the advertising, give them a little boost over on the organic side. Absolutely not. They exist completely separate silos at Google. They don't talk to each other. The long answer is you will have learned in your SEO session that you had a while ago that to gain rank down here, one of the things that you need to do is get web traffic. Google likes to rank websites that are visited, that are interesting, that are visited again and again, that are linked to. So the more web traffic that you get, the more high quality web traffic that you get, that will have a positive spillover effect on your ability to rank organically. And for a brand new website that doesn't have any traffic, and is looking to gain rank over here and is like, okay, well, where do I start to get my traffic? Well, you can start to get traffic on the advertising side. The more people who land on your website, the more people who are likely to talk about you on social media, link to you online, visit your website over and over again to get answers to their questions and solutions to their problems, etc., the better. And so if you need to do that via advertising, then so be it. There's no direct link, but there's a little bit of a positive spillover effect by building your traffic through advertising that inevitably over time is going to have a positive impact on your organic rank on the natural side down here. Okay, so next place I'm going to take you into is, I hope this works. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to take you into, this is what the Google Ads platform looks like. And I just have a mock account set up for you. I won't take you into the actual account setup process, but it is very straightforward. Literally, you go to google.com/ads and you hit sign up now. And you create an account under your Gmail account. And what it's going to ask for is the name of your business. It's going to ask for your time zone, the country that you live in, and it's going to ask for your credit card. And that's all you need to set the account up. There's no charge to your credit card. You're never going to spend a nickel until your campaign is live. So you can go ahead and set up an ads account to play with it. You can play with it for the next year and never spend a nickel. Just because your credit card is in there, it doesn't mean that anything is going to happen until you're live. Once you create your account, the screen that is in front of you is the first screen that you're going to see when you launch your first campaign. And a campaign is, you need to sort of get away from your traditional advertising nomenclature where we think of a campaign as a fall sale campaign or a Christmas campaign or that kind of thing. That's not what we mean in ads when we say campaign. A campaign is a collection of ad groups. That's all it is. And I'm going to talk about what an ad group is in a second. So I'm going to take you through setting up a campaign, setting up an ad group, and then setting up your keywords, and stop me at any time. The first thing that the system asks you is, what's the goal that you want to achieve? This you might think it's an important question to answer here, but I always select create a campaign without a goals guidance, because once you become familiar with the system, you don't need the templates and suggestions that Google might give you if you select one of these goals. It's inconsequential. So I always select, I don't need your help, Google. I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to go ahead and create without your guidance. Because I will tell you, as much as I love Google and I'm a huge advocate for all of their products and services, I will tell you that some default settings in the advertising platform are self-serving. Actually, most are self-serving. Google's out to make, obviously, the most money that they can. And so sometimes the default settings are set to make them the most money and not necessarily you the most money. And so you always need to read everything really carefully and consider every click that you make carefully. Like, is Google really acting in my best interest, or do I know better than Google? And you often know better than Google. Go with your gut and don't always follow their suggestions, because they are looking to, and they will never, they'll position it as, oh, we're just helping you cast a wider net. We're just helping you get more web traffic. Well, we don't want web traffic. We want conversions. We want sales. And just because you're giving me more people landing on my website doesn't mean that you're giving me a higher return on investment on my advertising spend. And so you just have to be really careful. The next question that Google's going to ask you is, what is the type of campaign that you want to run? And here's where Christine's question comes in. So if Christine wants to run a YouTube advertising campaign, Christine would hit on this button here that says video. So this is where you can create text and video ads that will display on the YouTube network. The shopping is those little PLA or shopping ads that I showed you on the SERP with the picture of your product and so forth. That's where you'd click if you wanted to do that kind of campaign. Display is, I should have pulled up a sample of a display campaign, but do you know when you're on like the New York Times or marthastewart.com or a bazillion other content websites out there, and you see ads displaying, like, well, I'll see if I can pull one up for you. Let's go to Martha Stewart is usually a good, so see, Fanshawe makes me have an ad blocker on too. So every time I want to do a sample, I have to turn it off. So we should probably see a banner ad come up here at the top. Yeah. Okay, so you see this? This is actually a Google ad, and I can always tell by the eye in the triangle up here that as a Google advertiser, you have the ability to create visual ads that can be displayed on content websites that have signed up to be a part of Google's content network. So as a content provider, like Martha Stewart, New York Times, House and Home, whatever, there's all kinds of websites out there that exist to provide content, but they need to monetize that content somehow, and they monetize it through advertising. Well, how do these websites find advertisers? Like, are you going to go out and pound the pavement and call all kinds of businesses and ask, do you want to advertise on my website? This isn't really efficient. So a lot of websites use Google to broker their advertising deals for them, whereby if I were to click here, Martha Stewart would get about half of the click revenue and Google would get half of the click revenue. But Martha Stewart cut their advertising revenue in half, but they didn't have to go out and find HP as an advertiser. Google went out and found them as an advertiser on their behalf. Yeah. But the disadvantage of this is that you can see, like, I came to Martha Stewart because I wanted a cool recipe to make eggs Benedict. I didn't want to buy a laptop from HP. So there's that sort of disconnect in terms of relevance there. It's a little bit of a dangerous play, and not something that I would recommend for any of you is display advertising right off the hop. It's really, really hard to turn a positive ROI on the display network because people weren't looking for you. They don't really want to see your ad. It's different. If I go to Google and I type in eco-friendly dinnerware, I want eco-friendly dinnerware. And so I'm way more likely to click on your ad and way more likely to purchase because I had that intent was there. On the display network, the intent is not there. So I'd recommend staying away from this. It can be really costly and it's hard to make any headway. There's someone in the crowd, and I've got it written down here. Fast Track.
It's Nitro Route now. They have had a pivot.
Ooh, cool. Love the pivot. Yeah, if you are advertising an app and you want to drive traffic directly to the App Store to generate downloads for your app, then you would use this campaign type, the app promotion campaign type. So that's what you would do here. Would not recommend using Smart Campaign. Smart Campaign is essentially Google saying, we'll create your campaign for you and spend your money for you. And usually not a good idea. I always like to retain as much control as I possibly can because, as I said, Google wants to spend your money. They love spending your money, and they don't always make the best decisions on your behalf. So when you're starting out, you always want to start with the upper left-hand campaign type, search. So we're going to hit on search, and then you can just ignore this down here. We're going to hit continue, and then we're going to get into the campaign setup screen that includes all of your campaign settings. And this is a really important screen. So here Your campaign name, for most of your companies, you're only going to need one campaign, which again is just a collection of ad groups. And so your campaign name is sort of inconsequential. I'll tell you when it is consequential. Like, let's say you were an Amazon, for example, and you were creating campaigns for all of your different products, and you've got so many different categories of products. You might like to have a campaign dedicated to home, one dedicated to garden, one clothing, one like, so you would set up your campaigns in terms of product categories. Sport Check would do that. Big e-commerce websites would need multiple campaigns when they have multiple different product types. And you'll see why in a minute, because your budget is set at the campaign level. So if you've got different products that have different advertising budgets, you need to have them separated by campaign. But for small and medium-sized enterprises that have a small collection of products that they're selling, one campaign is suitable. So you could, sorry, now I'm forgetting the name of Eco Palm Leaves. Yeah, you could just use your company name as the campaign name. It's inconsequential. And then the next question that Google asks you is, okay, where do you want your advertising served? And this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, why Google does drive me a little bit crazy sometimes. They say, again, for the second time, I just finished telling Google, I want my ads on the search network only. This is the search network. I want my ads to be here when someone's looking for my keywords. But notice, sorry, this pop-up is preventing me from hitting on my tab. So I gotta be really careful with my mouse here. I gotta let it go up and then, so, and then Google says, hey, just checking again. Do you wanna be on the display network? We've gone ahead and we've opted you into the display network, which is that whole Martha Stewart side that I just explained to you. No, I don't want the Martha Stewarts. That's gonna burn through all of my money and serve my ad when people are on all kinds of irrelevant sites that have nothing to do with me. No. So if you do ever decide to do display, which you might down the road, never ever combine search and display together. You always want them to exist in separate campaigns, because if you combine the two, the display network will suck up all of your budget, leaving nothing for the search network. And the search network is the really powerful one. That's the one where people are actually looking for your keywords. So we want to deselect that. For the second time, we need to tell Google, no, thank you. I already said no, thank you the first time. Of course, Google's going to opt you in. It spends more money, drives a higher revenue for them. This button, I don't know, in the beginning you could deselect it. Essentially it says that, I love Google's warnings. Hi, you just deselected. And most other people, like, talk about peer pressure. Most advertisers include their ads on Google search partner sites. Okay, well, not me. Google search partners are essentially affiliate search engines, and Google powers their advertising. So if you leave this selected, Google reserves the right then to show your ads on search engines other than their own, which might be fine, and it might work really well for you. But in the beginning, with a small budget, which I suspect that most of you will just be playing with a little bit of money, which, by the way, you get $100 free when you sign up for Google Ads. So you might want to just give it a whirl on Google's dime. With a tiny budget, there's no need. You'll be able to spend your money on Google. There's no need to expand beyond Google. So I would deselect both of them in the beginning. Then the next thing you're going to come to is your geo-target. This is one of my favorite parts of this advertising platform, is that you have the ability to say to Google, I only want my ad to show to people who are in a particular region. So this is especially relevant to e-commerce businesses that don't ship outside of Canada, or service companies like Jared, for example, that might not serve a target audience outside of Ontario. You don't need to worry about wasting money in a region outside of the region that you designate. So Christine, where is your target audience located? Oh, sorry, you're on mute, Christine. I can't hear you, Christine. David, can you hear Christine? I can't.
No, I
Oh, sorry.
forgot that I muted. No, I want to focus on Canada.
All of Canada. Okay. Aaron, what about you? Where's your target audience located?
So far, we're currently just trying to launch for Canada, and then we want to expand to all countries.
Okay, cool. What about Kristen?
Yeah, so we're just London and surrounding areas right now.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to use Kristen. I'm going to use Soul Runners as the example here because Canada is easy. If you want everybody in Canada to see, you just select Canada here. But if you want a more narrow geo region, then it's a little bit more complex. So I'm going to go ahead and select enter another location. And then I'm going to go advanced search here. And I'm going to, for Soul Runners, type in London, and I can see that London, Ontario is an option here, and I'm going to hit target. And then what you're going to see is Google will give you its definition of London, Ontario. And if Kristen is happy with that, then she would go ahead and save and say, okay, everybody within this blue boundary is eligible to see my ad. And anybody outside of that blue boundary would not be eligible to see my ad. But she's not happy with that. She might like to say, yeah, I can go a little bit further afield, like I'm okay in St. Mary, Strathroy, etc. She might want to do something called a radius target, where you input your city and then you can select a mile or kilometer radius around that city. And so if you're more happy with this radius, then you would leave it at that. And now you hit save, and then you've got your 20-mile radius around London. And then you know that Google will only serve your ad to people whose IP address or mobile device pings off of a tower in that radius. And you don't need to worry about somebody in Vancouver seeing your ad and potentially clicking on it and wasting your money because they obviously can't buy your service. Yeah?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Does it still work if somebody enters that radius, like who's not from there? Like if somebody drove into London, would they be targeted with those ads?
Yeah, absolutely. On a mobile device, Andres, is that what you mean?
Yeah, or like if they brought their laptop into London from Toronto or something.
Yeah, so Google is taking a look at your location on a laptop via your IP address. And so as long as the IP address renders to the location that was targeted, then they will be eligible to see your ad.
Great.
Yeah, good question. And then we come down here and you can select the language that you want to target. It's a bit of a complex, in my class. So keep in mind what I'm talking about to you in 1 hour is actually a 60-hour course in the marketing program at Vancha. So we're only really covering the very surface, but it's enough information to get you going. Safest just to leave your target at English. This means it doesn't mean the language that you're going to be writing your ads in. This means who do you want to target from a computer setting perspective? So if I'm searching on Chrome, when you set up Chrome, you had to set your language at the language that you wanted to see the interface in. So that's what that means. So Google's going to show your ad to people who have set their Chrome interface language at English only. We're going to skip over audiences. Audiences is only pertinent mostly on the display network and also on YouTube, where you can do things like retargeting. You can follow people that have previously visited your website, but perhaps not purchased. You want to follow them with reminder advertising. That's where you would set up an audience. Now we come down to budget and bidding. And this is another, so your location setting and your budget are the two most important campaign settings. So your budget is what allows you to say to Google, I don't want to spend more than $10 a day. So the minute that my click charges reach $10 in a 24-hour period, I want my ads to stop showing. And then the following 24-hour period, my ads can begin to show again. So that's what, so you have the ability to control your costs in two ways, at your keyword bid level, but also primarily at the budget level. So it's sort of a beautiful system in that even if you had $10 a day to spend, you know that you're protected and that you will not spend more than what you want to spend in a day. And there's no minimum budget to put in. The next thing that Google wants to know is, how do you want to bid? And what I recommend in the beginning is, because bidding is, there's a science to bidding, and you really learn that science and perfect it over time, that new advertisers can use what's called a bidding strategy. So every keyword, let's say that you want to bid on 100 different keywords, each one of those keywords has to have a bid. And a bid is a maximum cost per click, the most that you're willing to spend when somebody clicks on your ad after having searched on the keyword. Some keywords are worth more to you than others. So for example, if you bid on buy eco-friendly dinnerware, and you also bid on recycled dinnerware, the first keyword might be worth more to you, because if I've gone to Google and I've typed in buy eco-friendly dinnerware, my propensity to then buy from you is really high, because I've told you that's exactly what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to spend money. Whereas if I go to Google and I type in recycled dinnerware, you don't know, like, do I want to research it? Do I want a picture of it? Do I want to think about it? Do I want to blog? Like, the intent is not clear. So that searcher's worth to you might not be as high as someone whose intent is to purchase. So every keyword gets a value, a bid. And don't forget that that goes into the ad rank calculation. Remember, it was quality score times bid gives you your rank on the page. But in the beginning, it's hard to know, like, I don't know, what's it going to take to get that word? And so what you might want to do instead is use a strategy where you essentially say to Google, you know what, you do my bidding for me in the beginning, and just go ahead and get me the most clicks that you can, or just go ahead and like get me the highest return on investment that you can. So there's all kinds of different strategies that you can use that will allow Google to do your bidding for you. And usually I would say, don't let Google do the work for you. But this is one exception to that rule that I think that Google does a pretty good job of executing and finagling with your bids for you so that you achieve the ultimate goal that you're trying to achieve. Bit of an advanced topic that we don't have time to really get into in great detail today, but suffice it to say, if the bidding process is confusing to you and you want some help with it, Google will take that over. So that's where you set it here. If you want to manually bid yourself and you want to say, I don't want to spend more than 50 cents for any click that I get, then you have total control over that, and you can set that to say, nope, I'm just going to go ahead and put a manual cost per click in, and I'm going to set my bids myself, which is something that sophisticated advertisers would employ. This is where you can input your extensions. Again, we talked about extensions giving you more screen real estate. They're only eligible to show if you've reached a certain quality score threshold. Then we save and continue here, and we get to our ad group section. This is one of the most important things to remember is within a campaign, you have your ad groups, and your ad groups are nothing more than collections of keywords, collections of themed keywords. So for EcoPalm, for example, we know that we sell, and I'm going to make this up without keyword research, but we know that we sell plates, we sell spoons, we sell knives, we sell forks. So let's just assume that that's the way that people search. And I'm going to show you how to do keyword research in a second. But if I have just gone to Google and I've typed in eco-friendly spoon, I want to see an ad that talks about spoons. I don't want to see an ad that talks about dinnerware and plates and napkins. And I asked for a spoon, so talk to me about your spoons. So spoons needs an ad group. Knives need an ad group. Dinnerware needs an ad group. An ad group is just a collection of themed words. So for a car dealership, for example, you would have an ad group dedicated to the Civic and the CRV and the Tundra and the F-150 or whatever. I'm making this up, but so that every single keyword in that ad group was directly related to Civics and directly related to F-150s, so that when you wrote your ad, you knew what to talk about. If you take your long list of 100 keywords that you want, and each of those keywords are about something different, knives, forks, plates, napkins, blah, 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 you put them all in one ad group, then you've got to write an ad. How are you going to write an ad about all those different products? You can't. You don't have enough space to talk about everything. That's why we need to cut up our list of keywords into different groups. So let's say, for example, that we're going to do a plates ad group here. We want to you can leave the default bid at a penny for now, because you can do your individual bidding later. We'll talk about that if we get a chance. So our ad group name is plates. And here is where you want to put in all of your keywords. So like eco-friendly plate, recycled plates, bamboo plates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Every keyword has something to do with plates. If you need help with your keywords, and I would say that all of us do, because you don't know how people are trying to find you. Maybe no one is looking for bamboo plates. Maybe that's not the nomenclature that people are using. Then you come over here and you say, okay, I need help knowing how are people looking for eco-friendly plates. So you plug in a core keyword here, and then Google says to you, based on our historical search database, this is what all of the keywords, these are some keyword ideas for you. So, and if you like them, then you hit on the plus symbol and they become populated over on the left-hand side. They become a part of your campaign. If you don't like them, then you skip over them and you say, okay, well, I don't like biodegradable because I don't sell biodegradable. Then you skip over it. But Google will give you suggestions. Not all of them are good. Google wants you to bid on the more keywords, the better for Google. That means more money for them. So let's say you're happy with this collection of keywords. So I've got my 7 keywords that belong to my plates ad group. And then I come down and I hit save and continue. So I've chosen my keywords, created my ad group, and now's the time to write my ad. So don't forget, I'm writing an ad related to my plates word, my 7 words related to plates. So I need to, first of all, decide where I want to drive traffic. If I'm talking about my plates, do I want to drive traffic to my home page, or does it make sense for me to drive traffic to like an actual plates page? This page might be the better landing page. So I take this page and that becomes my landing page, the page that people are going to go to after they click on my ad. Here's my headlines. So whatever I think is going to stand out on the page. So I want to know, what are other advertisers saying and how can I say it better? So I'm making this up here. Like, we don't have time to get into a huge session on effective ad copywriting, but you know, the more ads you look at, the better you'll get a gist for what it takes. So eco-friendly plates, BOGO sale on now, whatever you want to say. Here's my 3rd headline, which may or may not trigger. Headline 1 and 2 always trigger, so you want to put your most important information in headline 1 and 2. And then we come down to our description line. Et cetera, et cetera. Here's your description line 2. Whatever you want to say about your business, whatever kind of compelling advertising text you think is going to get the click. Don't forget that the most important thing to remember is you got to be relevant to the keywords. So remember, we're in the plates group. So our ad needs to be all about plates. So how can you convince someone to click on your ad? Well, when you're talking about your plates, you've got to be as compelling as you possibly can.
Yes,
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Before you, because once you move away from the screen, you might not
Yeah.
be able to get back to it.
Yeah.
From the screen, where it just above there, say get keyword ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
Yeah, it was. We can go back.
when you were selecting, like getting keyword ideas from
Yeah.
right there.
Yep.
The first line here, enter a related website. What does it mean?
Oh, instead of entering a word to trigger the idea, so I entered eco-friendly plates as my sort of base word to give Google, like, it's, you know, what's it going to give you ideas on? You can put in your domain and Google will scan the contents of your website and give you keyword ideas based on the nomenclature it sees on your website.
But then it's not useful then, because if I don't have traffic, why do I look up my own keywords, right? Is it not quite relevant for the startup?
No, well, okay, so I see where you're coming from. So what Google will do is it will come to your website. Oh, did I stop sharing my screen? Sorry. There we go. I should be back. So what Google will do is it will come to your website and it will scan the contents of your website and it will say, oh, they're talking about eco-friendly plates. And it will give you keyword ideas based on eco-friendly plates that have been searched before. So it's not going to give you ideas that reflect the exact keywords that you've used on your site. It's going to give you ideas related to the products it sees on your website, but based on the nomenclature that people have actually used in Google. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's a pretty good tool then sometimes, right? Because
Yeah, and I mean, in your SEO section, in your session, I don't know whether you had a chance to actually get there and talk about this, but the keyword planner tool that Google offers you is free. And we use that tool in our SEO efforts all the time. So you just need to create an account, a free account, and go to Google Ads keyword planner. And you have access to this amazing tool. Christine, remind me what your business is about. Like, give me a keyword that you think people would use to find you.
Improve self-esteem maybe.
Okay.
Yeah,
so let's
have the same thing, enter a domain to use as a filter, the same thing that happened when I used this tool to find the keywords, but I didn't know what it meant.
Okay. So you weren't getting any ideas?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I got the idea, but I just don't know what that tool is for, like the link to the website filter. I didn't know what it, well, now I know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if I put in self-esteem here, which is a word that I would say you would not want to bid on. You want to bid on things like self-esteem motivator tool or self-esteem tool or self-esteem coach. Actually, that's it. Do you do self-esteem coaching?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that instead. So self-esteem coach. So I put self-esteem coach in here, and in Canada, and you can change this, but in Canada, on average, every month, 20 people type in self-esteem coach. And you can use this as a basis for like, okay, approximately how much is that going to cost me per click if I bid on that word? On the low range, it's like 77 cents. On the high range, it's 288. This is, accurate to, I don't know, it's like 60 or 70% accurate, because the actual price that you pay depends so much on your quality score that you can only take this as a rough guide in terms of how much it's going to cost you. But it's useful to see, okay, 20 people a month on average in this country type in the word self-esteem coach. But then Google goes a step further and it says, oh, okay, do you like self-esteem coach? Then you might like self-confidence coaching, self-worth coach, and you can see the monthly searches associated with these derivatives that Google is suggesting to you. So it's essentially like Google's thesaurus, but it's more than a thesaurus because it's based on its historical search database. And so when Christine is creating content for her website to build her organic rank, we always tell people working on SEO projects, use the Google Keyword Planner tool to uncover the keywords that you should be using and weaving into your content and the questions you should be answering and the problems you should be trying to solve based on what is it that people are looking for online. And this is the tool that's going to show it to you. This tool is exactly like this tool. It's the same tool. It just looks different because I'm operating within an ad group right now rather than operating in the planner tool. But it's exactly the same data. It works exactly the same way.
Thank you. It's really helpful because I've used this quite a bit and I still have problem. And they're like tutorial everywhere. Like I don't know which one to trust, but it's a very good version of just to get to know how to use it.
Yeah, that's it's a good point, Christine, is there's a lot of data online and you just don't know which ones are the best resources to use. It's a great point. I'll give you a good example of several years ago, I was over doing some SEO work at 3M and they were talking about optimizing their website for a particular product line. They produce a lot of safety eyewear for industrial sites. And they were talking about more, we need to get it into our copy, and everybody was on and on and on safety eyewear. And I was thinking to myself, geez, if I was going to go to Google, that's not what I would type in. I would not type in safety eyewear. I'd type in safety glasses. And nobody ever mentioned the word safety glasses as a word that should be incorporated into their website copy, because at 3M, that's not what they call it. But it really doesn't matter what 3M calls it. It matters what the customer calls it. If you want to be found, you need to speak like your customers speak. And if people are searching on self-confidence coach more than they're searching self-esteem coach, then you probably should talk about self-confidence coaching. Even though you refer to it as self-esteem coaching, if it's not what your target audience refers to it as, then you're never going to be visible for these people. Yeah. So that's where the keyword planner tool comes in terms of allowing you sort of a bird's eye view into your target audience's search behavior and the nomenclature that they are using online when they're looking for you. Good question. Okay, so back to our ad group. So we have written our ad. Well, you saw me write the ad and you saw me put in the URL and write the descriptions and everything. And that's all there is to it. And then you would continue that process and build out all of your ad groups for each different product or service that you sell. So if Christine does different kinds of coaching, like if Christine does life coaching in addition to self-esteem coaching and perhaps job coaching, then each of those different services need their own ad group because they're going to have their own collection of keywords that are related to one another. Christine would never put them all together because then her ad would have to say, life coaching, self-esteem coaching, job coaching, BDDDD, and then you create like this generic ad that's related to all kinds of different searches. And I'm sitting here going, well, I just want a life coach. And you can bet your boots that the ad below you is going to say life coach. And I'm way more likely to click on the life coach than I am the person who is telling me they do this, they do this, they do this, they do this. Just talk about what it is that the theme of the ad groups for which you're writing the ad. Any questions? I'm looking at the time, it's 10 after 11. And so we have about an hour left to go. So I'm gonna flip gears now and get into the analytics platform. David, is that okay with you?
That's okay with me. Does anyone have any other questions at the moment? No? I have some questions I wrote down, but I think, Liz, are you okay at the end to stick around for a few?
Yeah, totally. Are there any questions related to the platform that I have open right now that you want me to address at this moment? Or we'll save them?
Mine were a bit more, I guess, a bit more general, like kind of related to like more around your planning and things like that.
Okay.
Maybe some key things that people want to know, but I think they're maybe better saved for the end because I don't want you to miss out on the opportunity to finish the whole session.
Okay, totally. So just before I leave, I'm looking at Kristen again. I'm thinking about soul runners. Soul runners, Kristen, remind me, I know I looked at your website last night, but this is a running event, like a running group?
So we teach learn to run classes to people who need a little bit more confidence to kind of get out there. And we also teach learn to run a 5K, or I call it a 5K crusher. So it's whatever kind of goal, if you want to run your race faster, that kind of thing. So it's like personal training almost.
Yeah. So the one thing I would caution a business like yours about is stay really, really hyper granular and specific with the keywords that you bid on. If you ever decide to do advertising like this, bidding on something like personal training would be the kiss of death, because it's going to be expensive. You're competing against the good lives of the world. Instead, choose to focus on keywords that are going to give you way less volume. So you might not see a lot of clicks, but the clicks that you do get will be highly qualified and much more likely to convert. So stick with keywords. And again, you'd have to use the keyword planner. I'm making this up and I'm not a runner, so I don't know how people would look for you, but stick with keywords that are, 5K training program or 5K personal trainer, very specific nomenclature that is going to bring you highly qualified traffic. We want to stay away from bringing traffic to your website where people are just looking to get something for free.
I actually, when you were talking about it, I Googled learn to run classes in London, Ontario, and there's probably 4 or 5 places that do it, but nobody's doing paid ads, which is kind of interesting. So I'm probably going to try out the free, the $100 credit or whatever, just to see if that does anything. I'm really curious.
Yeah. And the second thing I would caution everybody about is I often will run into people that say, oh yeah, I've tried Google ads, didn't work for me. It's total, I'm never going to spend another nickel there. And then I go and I look at their account and I know why it didn't work, because they were bidding on the wrong words. They were not using the right match types. Like, we didn't even get a chance to talk about match types today. So if you could jot that down as something that you should research, and just use Google information. Google has a plethora of fabulous information in their Learn Center online. But match types is something that you're going to want to read up on, because the syntax that you use around the keywords that you bid on, whether you encase your words in square brackets or you encase them in quotation marks when you're bidding on your keywords, will essentially dictates the leverage that Google has in serving your advertising and in how many scenarios Google can serve your ads. And the tighter the match type, the better for small businesses. So make sure that you do some research on that. I would hate for you, Kristen, for example, to use that $100, that 100 free bucks, and think, if I didn't get a single client, so I'm never going to look at that system again. It often takes some time to work out the kinks, figure out the keywords that work, weed out the bad stuff, keep the good stuff. And so don't give up on it too quickly. It takes some time to perfect before you really know whether it's working. Good. Okay, well, we are gonna, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question. Is there a way that you can target specific age groups as well?
Ooh. Good question. There is. That's an audience setting. And it is possible to set an age demographic. The only thing I would caution you about is the age demographic will be based on whether people are using Chrome and are signed into their Gmail account, and whether they were honest about their age when they set up their Gmail account. Do you know what I mean? And so, Aaron, I've just, you know, like if I go to Google, so, you know, remind me what your business is, Aaron?
We provide optimized routes for delivery drivers.
Right. So, you know what, if you say to me, okay, my target audience is between the ages of 25 and 35, well, I'm 45. If I go to Google and I type in optimized delivery route application or whatever the keyword might be, I'm 45. Do you not want me to see your ad? I just typed in your keyword. So usually it's not necessary, because you are targeting your advertising on the basis of the keyword. You don't want to exclude people from seeing your ad if they have looked for you, usually, right? Demographic targeting becomes really important on the display network. So Aaron, if you were going to show your ad on the Martha Stewart's and the New York Times of the world on the display network, then I would say absolutely we want some demographic targeting in there, because that's not a keyword targeted campaign. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it is possible. Okay, good. So let's get back over into analytics. Does anybody in the crowd not know what Google Analytics is? Okay, so everybody knows what it is. A few of you have it installed on your website. And in a nutshell, it is a little bit of JavaScript that exists on every single page of your website that allows Google to collect key pieces of information from your weblog. And essentially, Google Analytics just reconstructs that data into cool reports. And we use Google Analytics to answer questions related to essentially 4 different topics. 1, search engine optimization. 2, traffic acquisition. Which one of my acquisition channels is performing best for me? User experience and content development. So Google Analytics is free, and it's widely used. It's the most widely used web analytics platform out there for that reason, because it is free. And essentially what it allows us to do is to answer questions about the performance of our website. When people land on our website, where did they come from? How did they find us? Once they're on our website, how are they behaving? What are they doing? And can we glean any insights from that in terms of being able to make our experience better? The most important thing you can remember about analytics is it is an overwhelming amount of information. And you could get into analytics and spend 4 hours fiddling around with the data and come away with no insights. So the best piece of advice that I was ever given was years ago by an analytics guru that worked for Google. And that was, you never go into the platform without a question. You formulate the question in your mind. I want to know X. I want to know Y. Then you go into the platform and you create your report that is going to answer that question. If you get in there and you start fiddling around, it's a waste of time. You'll be bombarded with information, and we call that like a data puke. Like, okay, so what? If at the end of your fiddling around, you say, okay, so what does that mean for me? Then you haven't used the tool properly. So you always want to go in with a question and know that question, there will be implications when you answer that question, and actionable implications. So first thing you need to remember about analytics is that JavaScript. The JavaScript, it's free to set up an account. So you just go to google.com/analytics and you hit sign up, and then you put in your URL, and Google gives you this snippet of JavaScript. That snippet of JavaScript looks the same for every single organization. The only difference is the UA code. The UA code is essentially your account number. When that JavaScript is installed on your website, on every single page of your website, and you can deploy it in a number of different ways. Do any of you have WordPress sites? Is that the platform that, okay, so Christine has a WordPress site, Aaron has a WordPress site. The installation for Google Analytics is simple. there's tons of plugins that you can use to install GA. Monster Insights is one of them. There's tons. And all the plugin is going to ask you for is that UA code. So the first step is to set up your account, google.com/analytics. You get that UA code, which is like a 9 or 10 digit number. Copy it, paste it into the WordPress plugin, and hit deploy. And then the plugin deploys the JavaScript on every page of your website, and you're done. So that's super simple. Other CMS systems will have their own plugins that will make it easy for you to deploy the JavaScript. So just remember that the JavaScript fires every time somebody hits on a link on your website. So I have just selected this page on the Martha Stewart website that fired the script on the page that allows my website to talk to Google Analytics. When the script doesn't fire, the two systems can't talk to one another. So just remember, like, the communication operates on the firing of the script. So that becomes important, because if I hit on a link that doesn't fire the script, you are not by default talking to Google Analytics. So let's see if I can come up with an example here. Anything, I'm looking for a link here. So, okay, this is a good example. See this link here? So I'm on the Contact Us page, which fired the script because the URL changed. If I click here, the URL is not going to change. Yeah, I can tell down here that I'm still on the Contact Us page. So if I click here, it's going to fire my own internal email system to be able to email Martha Stewart. But it's not talking to Google Analytics because the URL is not changing. So just remember that some websites, especially brochure type websites that have all of their content on one page, or that have contact forms that don't fire new URLs, anytime the URL doesn't change on your domain, you're not talking to Google Analytics. So it's important to remember that. Okay, we are again going to use EcoPalm. So I was given access to Taxably, Hot Sauce, and EcoPalms. And EcoPalms is the only one that is actually live, and I want to show you why. So, is there an easy, okay, here we go. Be careful there. Okay, so I was given access to the hotsauceco.com. Is the owner of that business online right now?
Jesse, are you here? Yeah,
No?
he's here. He's here. Jesse?
Maybe he's stepped away. What about Taxably?
Siraj is here, yes.
Okay, let's use Taxably. So I'm in the analytics platform right now. What you're seeing on my screen, I have access to 100 or so accounts. And so when you sign up for Google Analytics, you'll just see one account. What you're seeing here is like all the accounts that I have access to. So I'm going to search for Taxably because I was given access last night. So see that UA code there? That's your account number. That's Taxably's account number. That's what you would copy and paste into your WordPress plugin to deploy the JavaScript. So I'm going to click on all website data here. And so now I'm inside the Google Analytics account for Taxably. And the first thing that I noticed right away is like all these zeros. I'm like, oh, something's wrong here. Something, because I know that I was on the Taxably site a couple of days ago checking it out for this session, and I can see that I was not registered as a user. So I'm like, okay, something has gone awry here. And so I went to the Taxably site. This is it, right, David? Did I get the URL right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So taxably.ca, and I say to myself, okay, like I was told that Taxably has a Google Analytics account, which they do. They have an account, and the account number is UA173DDDDD. So what's the problem? Why is there no data in here? So I take a look at the script. So I'm going to view my page source, which is essentially just the HTML that lies behind the site. You can do that for any website. So here's the HTML. And what I'm looking for is a reference to Google Analytics. I want to see whether GA has been installed. And I know that the word analytics is a part of the JavaScript. The other thing that I always look for is, okay, did they deploy it through Google Tag Manager? And if you don't know what that means, maybe jot it down or do some research on Tag Manager. Is essentially a free system that you can use to deploy scripts on your website. But I can see there's no reference to Manager in the JavaScript either. So the problem is that Taxably set up their Google Analytics account properly and they got their account number, but they never deployed the JavaScript on their website. It doesn't exist on their website, and that's why it's reading zeros. And the same is the case for Hot Sauce Company. There's no data in their account either because they never deployed the script. Does that make sense? So creating a Google Analytics account is not enough. Obviously, you need to have the script in your HTML for the two systems to talk to one another. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Does Taxably have any questions about that?
We were having some problems, like when I was sending it to you last night, we were saying the same thing, like why is it like 0 and everything. We were a little confused. So I talked to the person who did the coding and everything. He said he's getting back to me, but thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, it's not in your HTML. So it's a simple fix. And so what your code person needs to do is, so I'm within your account right now. So I go to admin and I go to the admin panel, and under tracking information, you just go to tracking code, and here it is. There's the script. So you can copy that, paste it into an email to your code guy and say, can you paste this into the HTML as the first item in the head tag on each of your pages, and that will solve the problem. If he's going to manually code it, if you have a CMS platform that you want to deploy this through a plugin, then all you need is this account number here. This is your personal account number. This is the only difference in the script between you and the Hot Sauce Company and EcoPalm is this number here. Everybody else's script looks exactly the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So the only one of your accounts that for which I have data is EcoPalm Leaves. So they have correctly installed the script. I can tell because that there is data in the account. Yeah. So the first thing that you need to know is what is the date range of the data that you're looking at, and you can set your calendar frame here. So I just randomly chose a Jan 1 to yesterday's date for the purposes of illustration here, but you can look at any date time frame that you want. Just be careful if, Google Analytics is not retrospective. It will begin to gather data from the moment in which the JavaScript has been installed. So if you install it tomorrow, you're not going to be able to see data from 5 days ago. Yeah. So your date range will, for all new businesses, only be able to start on the day that you populate the JavaScript. Okay. So the very first thing we're going to talk about before we get into some key reports that I think are the most meaningful reports is the fact that the most powerful element of the analytics platform is one that is not created for you by default. It is one that you need to manually create yourself, and it is by far and away the most powerful element. And it is the analytics platform ability to track conversions. So by default, the analytics platform cannot tell you how many conversions you have achieved if it doesn't know what a conversion means. Every business has a different conversion. So Kristen, for example, when people come to your website, what do you want them to do? What's the ultimate goal?
I want them to sign up for my program.
Perfect. So I'm on your website right now, and I am hitting on the link that says book now, and there's memberships. So I'm going to hit on a 3-month membership, and I'm going to add it to my cart, and then I'm going to view my cart, and then I'm going to check out, and I'm going to put my credit card number in, and then I'm going to purchase. And the page that I come to after having actually submitted my payment is either your thank you page or your conversion page or whatever page that is, cannot be reachable unless you've actually spent money and unless you've actually converted. That's the page that is considered to be your conversion page. So that you need to tell that to the analytics platform. You need to say, every time my JavaScript fires on that /thank-you page or whatever the URL is, I want a conversion, a goal conversion to trigger in the analytics platform. Otherwise, Google Analytics has no way of knowing, what does success look like on your website? So Christine, what does success look like on your website? What's the action that you want people to undertake?
Right now is make an appointment for coaching session.
Perfect. So do I have to pay for that before I can make an appointment, or do I make an appointment, have a coaching session, and then pay later? Do you invoice me later? Or?
Well, I give out the first session is consultation, so it doesn't cost them anything. They just have to book it, but then we will negotiate about packages later on.
Okay, perfect. So the goal conversion for you on your website then is people to book their free consultation, which I assume is filling in a form and hitting submit. And the minute that I hit the submit button, whatever page I land on, that's my goal conversion page. You need to take that page and tell Google Analytics, that's my conversion page. Can a website have more than one goal conversion? Absolutely, most do. If I'm not ready to book my free consultation with Christine, I might be able to sign up for Christine's newsletter. I might be able to download a white paper about self-confidence. I might be able to do all kinds of other things that have economic value for Christine and therefore should be tracked as a goal in analytics. So you can have up to, for every view in Google Analytics, you can have up to 20 goals that you're tracking. Most businesses will have more than one because there are lots of actions that can be undertaken on websites that have economic value for the organization. You have to track the economic value of those actions to be able to know whether your website is successful or not. Because at the end of the day, you might have spent $100 on Facebook ads, $100 on Google ads, $100 on an email blast. And at the end of the day, you're going to want to know, okay, which one of those $100 worked better for me? Which one of those $100 drove a higher return on investment? Well, if you're not tracking your goal conversions, you're not going to be able to answer that question. So for Eco Palm Leaves, the macro conversion, like the ultimate goal, is to get people to shop, obviously, right? So we want people to shop now. We want people to choose their product, add to cart, and we want to view cart, we want to pay, and whatever page I come to after I've paid for my products becomes the goal conversion. So come back into analytics, and let's just pretend, for the sake of argument, I'm not going to be able to actually convert, because as much as I adore these products, I'm not ready to buy them right now. So I'm not going to get out my credit card and actually convert today. I might another day after I've had a chance to read more about it. But let's just assume that if I did put my credit card in, that I came to a page that looked like this, that had a URL of /thank-you that said, thank you for buying your plates. They'll be shipped to you within the next 7 days. That page is unreachable unless you've spent money. So I'm going to grab that URL, and then I'm going to take it into the analytics platform, and I'm going to register it, set it up as a goal conversion page. And I can tell that the Eco Palm Leaves, the owner of this company, has not done this, because when I go to goal conversions here, I see a screen that says this report requires goals to be enabled for the view. So they haven't set up their goals. They haven't enabled the most powerful feature of the analytics platform. It's like the first thing that everybody should do. So how do you set it up? You come down into admin, so this little gear down in the bottom, and you hit on the goals setting over under view. And okay, I don't have the right level of access. I don't have administrator access, and that's my fault. I didn't ask for it from David. So Eco Palm Leaves gave me view access only. But if I had administrator access, I would see a plus sign here, a red plus sign that says, do you want to add a goal? And I would hit that plus sign, and then I would paste that /thank-you URL and essentially register it as a goal, so that analytics knows every time that page fires, they say, oh, a goal has occurred. And then that gives you the power to go back and say, okay, this website visitor spent money. Where did they come from geographically? How did they find my website? How many times did they have to come to my website prior to making a conversion? Were they on a tablet? Were they on a mobile device? Were they on a desktop? You can answer all kinds of questions that will help you have a bird's eye view into where your buyers came from. And that will help you to spend money more wisely on traffic acquisition, advertise in a more to the geo regions that are performing better for you. All kinds of rich data will come from that. But the first step is figuring out, okay, what are all of my valuable actions, all of the actions on the website that have economic value for me. And Eco Palm Leaves might consider like browsing the catalog a goal conversion, because that has economic value. Like if you had to print a catalog and mail it out to a bunch of households, that would cost you a huge amount of money. So if someone comes to your website and browses your catalog online, that just saved you all kinds of money in printing and mailing and so forth. That absolutely has value to you. Signing up for a newsletter has economic value for you. So just don't forget that. Don't be short-sighted in thinking that a purchase is the only goal conversion that your website has, because that's not the case. So I'm going to go through 3 sample questions. So remember, I told you, like, never get into the platform without asking yourself a question. I'm going to pose 3 questions. I'm going to show you how to find the answers to those questions, which will give you an idea of how you use the system and how user-friendly it is. The first thing that, before we get into our questions, that you need to remember is that essentially all of your controls are over here on the left-hand side. I'm in the admin panel now, so I'm just going to come out of admin and get back into the data. So the admin panel is accessed over here on the little gear. But to get back to your actual data, you want to click on the menu on the left-hand side. And your data is broken out among your audience data, acquisition data, behavior data, and conversion data. So it's sort of lumped into 4 different groups. And when I teach analytics to my students, which again is a 45-hour course in the Lawrence Kinlan School of Business, again, we're doing this in an hour, my course essentially sort of works through these different labels, and we go through the data in this order. First thing that you need to remember is there's a difference between dimensions and metrics. Metrics are quantifiable measurements. And so things like bounce rate and session duration and pages per session and conversion rate, those are quantifiable metrics that you can take a look at. Dimensions are the ways in which you slice your metrics. So if you said to me, Liz, the bounce rate of my website is 65%, what am I going to do about that? I'm going to say to you, I have no idea, because that's a meaningless piece of information, without taking a look at bounce rate at across different dimensions. Dimensions is how you take that bounce rate and you say, okay, it's 65%, but what does your bounce rate look like on a mobile device? What does your bounce rate look like in the United States? What does your bounce rate look like from Facebook traffic? What does your bounce rate look like from people who land on your shopping page instead of your home page? So by landing page. When you slice your metric, which is bounce rate, across different characteristics, you're looking at dimensions. So remember, there's metrics and dimensions. So the first question that I'm going to ask myself of EcoPalm is, let's say that you are thinking about user experience and you've designed your website in a way that you think is really user friendly. And you want to know, are people navigating my website the way I believe they should be, the way I have designed my site to be navigated? So take a look at the homepage for EcoPalm. If you landed on this website, where do you think you'd be most inclined to click? Where do you think that EcoPalms wants you to click?
Shop now.
Shop now, absolutely. That's what I see right away. I see the Shop Now button. So do you think, as the owner of EcoPalm, you would want to know, are people actually doing that? When they land on my homepage, and not everybody does, by the way, the front door of your house is not the only way to get into your house. Some people come through the side door, the back door, etc. So, but when people do land on your homepage, where do they go next? They design their website, I'm assuming, purely because of the way it looks to me, for people to click on that button. I think they would want to know, are people indeed doing that? So there's a question. When people land on my homepage, where do they go next? Okay, we've got a question. We're ready to go in and find the answer to that question. Well, we find that information under the tab called behavior. So behavior is what shows you how people are navigating different pages in your website. So if you come under site content, we're going to come down to landing pages, and we're going to take a look at when people land on my homepage. So the / is your homepage. When people land on my website, where do they go next? So you can see that 3,300 sessions in this time frame began with the homepage. And here's how the rest of the sessions break out in terms of landing pages. So I'm going to click on my homepage, and then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to hit on this button called Entrance Paths. And this is the report that answers my question. Users who started at this landing page, / which is the homepage, then viewed these pages. So in 13% of the sessions that started with a / people viewed the collections page next. Is that the Shop Now page? Let's see. Yes, it is. See, the collections URL is the one that you get to after having clicked on Shop Now. So yes, that is true of 13% of all sessions that began with the homepage. So perhaps you would think that that would be closer to 50% or 75%. It's not the case. Only 13% of sessions that started on that homepage led to a visit to the collections page. So you've answered your question there. And so then you always have to say to yourself, okay, so what? And so the owner of the company might say to themselves, geez, only 13%? Maybe I'm going to change this button. Maybe I'm going to make this button more visible. Maybe a black background is not appropriate here. Maybe the button needs to be bigger. Maybe the background needs to be a more jazzy color. Maybe I need to bring it above. Like, you can fiddle around with your design to get people to do what you want them to do if you believe that that navigation path is imperative. And I'm not saying that it is. I'm not suggesting that everybody needs to click on the shop now button. I'm just using this as an illustration for how do you ask yourself a question, and then how do you find the data, and then how do you act on the data? Do you know what I mean? Next question. Oh, and by the way, it's possible to access that page up here too by hitting on this green banner. Will also take you to the collections page. The limitation of Google Analytics is that it cannot tell you if the URL is exactly the same. I reach the same URL by hitting here as I do up here. Google Analytics is not sophisticated enough to tell you which of the two was clicked on. Was it the green banner or was it the shop now button that incurred more clicks? Because they both lead to the same place. And don't forget, the only way for GA to talk to you, or only way for your website to talk to GA is through the firing of the JavaScript. So if you want to know exactly where people are hovering and clicking, you have to use a tool like Crazy Egg that can actually detect exactly where on the page people are clicking. It's not on the basis of the firing of JavaScript. It's on the basis of mouse movements. Okay, next question that EcoPalm might ask themselves is, which is my most successful traffic acquisition strategy? So like I'm spending money on getting people to my website, I'm spending time on different SEO tactics, etc. What's working and what's not? So to be able to answer that question, we come over to the acquisition tab and we hit on sorry, I hit on the wrong thing. We're gonna hit on all traffic. We're gonna take a look at our different channels. And we're gonna see here that here's all of our sessions, here's all of our users, and we can see how those sessions are parsed out across different acquisition channels. So our top acquisition channel is called direct. Direct traffic is people, primarily people who know your URL and input it directly into their browser, like I did when David gave me all of your URLs and I just like manually typed them into my browser to access your website. That's direct traffic. Direct traffic can also be dark traffic, like unidentifiable traffic. If Google Analytics can't tell where you've come from, then they'll just bucket you as direct. Organic search is organic search engine traffic. Social is social media traffic. Referral traffic is people who've clicked on a link from a different website. So if, if I went to the Leap Junction website and Leap Junction had linked to EcoPalm and I clicked on a link to EcoPalm from Leap Junction, that's a referral traffic. And then there's email campaign traffic. So you can see here that you can see all of your different metrics parsed out across the dimension of channel acquisition. Yeah, this is the dimension. These are the metrics. But these are my favorite metrics over here on the right-hand side. The most meaningful metrics are absent because EcoPalm doesn't have goal conversion tracking set up. This, like really at the end of the day, who cares what your pages per session was, your session duration? I mean, it's nice to know, but who cares? If people are buying, I really don't care if you've been on my website for 5 minutes or 8 minutes. If you took out your wallet and put your credit card number in, that's ultimately what I care about, yeah? In determining what's successful and what isn't. The third question I might ask myself is, how is my website performing across different devices? So if I come over to my audience tab and I come down to mobile, you'll be able to see what portion of your traffic comes from desktop, people accessing your website on desktop versus mobile versus tablet. Sometimes what you'll see across this line here is like either really great stats or really bad stats. Sometimes there's anomalies, like, and this can point to mobile UX issues, like if you haven't designed the mobile version of your website or your responsive website isn't operating properly. Sometimes this can point to issues that people have with your website when they access it from a mobile device. So it can be really rich data and actionable data from a mobile UX perspective. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Chris.
I was just going to say, so where you were showing the organic search and social with where the new users come in, where was that under behavior?
No, that was under acquisition, all traffic, and then channels.
Okay. Yeah, I'm writing
Yeah.
this down. That's really useful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Acquisition, all traffic, and then channels.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Kristen?
Is there a way to exclude your own IP address, or did they automatically do that?
Yes, awesome. Yes, you can totally do that under the admin panel, under a filter, I think. And I can't show you how to do it because I don't have administrative access on this particular account, but you would set up a filter. Yeah, great question.
Liz, what other kind of traffic would they want to filter out?
Oh, bot traffic. Yeah. And you do that again. I don't have the right setting here, but I think it is under filter. I think there's an option to automatically filter out bot traffic. The other thing you could filter out, you just want to be careful with filters because filters are permanent. So if you make a mistake with a filter, then that data is gone. So usually what I recommend is like you always, so let's say for example, you say to yourself, I really only care about Canadian traffic. I don't want my American traffic muddled into my data. It's accidental traffic. It's people that have found my website by mistake because there's an EcoPalms website down in California. It has nothing to do with me. And sometimes they land on my website accidentally. So I don't want American data skewing my data. And so you decide to filter out all American traffic. The minute that you do that, it's a permanent filter. So if you make a mistake, that data is irretrievable. So I always recommend that you create a duplicate set of data for like you essentially duplicate your view. So you retain your raw data view, and then you've got a Canadian data view. Do you know what I mean? And then if you have made a mistake with your filter, then you can just go back to the raw data. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Any other questions? We're coming to the end of the session, and I'm happy to stay on as long as you would like me to answer anything else that you might have thought about. David, do you want to start off with your questions then?
Sure, yeah. Mine are a little bit more related to the ads platform.
Okay.
I had a few here. I just thought these might be things that everybody might want to know at some point. One was when designing your ad copy, what do you recommend is the best way to kind of test it, especially if you're a first timer?
Yeah. So you saw me create an ad group and you saw me write one ad. We never just write one ad. We always write at least 2 ads, because I'll never be able to sit here and tell you that this is a bad ad. These guys did not write this ad properly. You'll never really know unless you try. And so what you want to do is a lot of A/B testing. So you write 2 ads and Google will essentially split test them automatically for you. They'll show 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and when you develop enough traffic on each version of your ad, you'll see which one has generated a higher conversion rate than the other. Great question.
Awesome. Next question I have is kind of a 2-parter. How do you measure, like, what's kind of a catch-all of measuring the results of your ad campaign?
Yeah, so the measurement will come in on the analytics side. When you set up your goal tracking, you will come under acquisition, and then you see that Google Ads has its own handy dandy little tab here because they're both owned by the same company. Like if you were running Facebook ads, you would have to, it's a whole other separate ball of wax in order to track those in analytics, but Google Ads are tagged automatically for you so that you'll be able to see which campaigns, which ad groups, and which keywords are performing best for you, and which ones have the highest goal conversion rate, and you can calculate your ROI from there.
Awesome. I was wondering if you could give them just a brief understanding of how you go about calculating like customer lifetime value and why that's important when it comes to analytics and AdWords.
Yeah, great question. You know, this is a really important concept because, you know, we'll take Christine's business, for example, but it pertains to all of you. Christine, you know, does self-esteem coaching, and probably people will engage with Christine beyond one session. And so let's say that Christine charges $200 per session, but she knows that on average, her customers will probably over their lifetime buy 5 sessions from her. And so each of those customers over their lifetime would be worth $1,000 to her. If Christine doesn't do that, if she doesn't have an appreciation for what people are worth to her over their lifetime, and she only looks at the single first transaction as the revenue, then she's drastically undershooting what she should be willing to spend to acquire a new customer. If she thinks that somebody's only worth $200 to her, she might say, well, there's no way I'm going to spend more than $20 in acquiring that customer because they're only worth $200 to me. Well, no, they're not. They're worth $1,000 to you. So it might be worth your while to spend $100 in acquiring them as a customer, because if you take into consideration their entire lifetime value, then you're willing to spend more to acquire them up front, and you're willing to spend more per click, and you're willing to invest more in an acquisition strategy. So the problem is for new business owners, it's really hard to guesstimate what that CLV is. Companies that have been around for a long time, like a windows and door company, should have a really good idea for, okay, if you buy a set of windows from me, are you ever going to buy anything else from me? Or is that it? Is it just a one-time transaction? It's really hard to guesstimate in the beginning, but don't lose sight of the fact that hopefully customers will be with you for a while and they'll be spending more than that initial transaction.
Could you offer any recommendations how these new entrepreneurs might go about figuring out their first round of customer value or customer lifetime value? Sorry.
Wow.
I know that's a pretty loaded question.
Yeah. I mean, it's really just trial and error. It's guesstimation.
Right.
Because you could try to research it online, but I don't really think that, I don't think it would be accurate. I think I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for that, because it is just a lot of trial and error. And I mean, if you have a good relationship with any kind of similar business anywhere in the world that could help you guesstimate that information. But don't lose sleep about the number, coming to an exact number. It really is just about having appreciation for the fact that customers are worth more to you than you might think. And so it might make sense to invest more heavily in the beginning. You know,
Right.
it's because it's if you can get them in the beginning, then hopefully they'll be with you for a while. But how long and how many transactions, there's so many variables there. It's hard
Right.
to pinpoint. Yeah.
Well, thank you. My next question is more related to, I guess, a little bit more on the keyword side, because we did kind of glaze over this a little bit in our SEO session. One of the things I wanted to ask was, if I'm new to this, how do I find the keywords, my potential prospects are actually searching for? Obviously there's Keyword Planner, which we kind of mentioned, but any other recommendations that you would use?
Yeah, there's all kinds of tools that exist out there. Moz has a keyword discovery tool, for example. All you have to do is Google it and you'll see all kinds of different tools. The only thing I can say about that is that, again, there is an overwhelming amount of resources and information online, and the keyword there is overwhelming. I try to encourage my students when they're working on projects and when they're in the real world to just stick to the basics, because the added value that you get by layering on lots of different tools and like spending all kinds of time trying to figure out how to use them it usually isn't worth it. You usually can get what you need from the Google Keyword Planner. It is the most accurate because it is based on their historical database, and nobody else can really replicate that. I mean, you know, you could use thesauruses and so forth, and I find that your time is better spent on testing and execution than it is on like trying to figure out all these additional tools that are available. The only other one that I would say, you know, I am a huge fan of Moz and their entire suite of tools, some of which are free and some of which are not. So again, it depends on your budget, but I wouldn't go spending money on anything in the beginning. It's just not necessary. Everything that you need to get started is free.
It's very true. I've used a few different myself, and I find that, yeah, Google Keyword Planner is by far the better choice. Awesome. Thank you, Liz. I think I just looked at all my other questions and you answered all of them during your presentation. So that's a good thing. And sorry.
I think I saw Aaron's hand come up there.
Yeah. I just got a quick question of what's the course code that you teach at Fanshawe?
Oh, so analytics is 5074, so MGMT 5074, I think. And Google Ads is 5057, and I think it's also an MGMT. So 5057 and 5074. Okay. Both of which are available online, and both of which I believe are available to be taken in isolation of the remainder of the program. Like if you're just interested in that course alone, I do believe that you can pick it up as an ad hoc thing. I could be wrong there, but I think you can.
Could anyone like sign up for it, I guess?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. But if you wanted to reach out to me, I can send you the name of our program coordinator, or David could connect you with. It's Rhonda Payne. She would be able to answer that question.
Awesome.
We all met Rhonda earlier. So you guys know who to contact. Awesome. I definitely recommend, if you're really wanting to deep dive this, Aaron, it's, yeah, the course is pretty concise. Anybody else? Questions? No,
I'll just end by saying, like, I hope you don't come away from the session overwhelmed, because at the end of the day, you know, like Kristen, you are busy running a business. You are a trainer, and that's where your time. So like, it's so easy to get overwhelmed. And so if you could just, you know, allocate an hour a week, for example, to try something or learn something or investigate something, but know that it is overwhelming, and you are business owners and your primary focus is running the business and servicing your clients. And so to expect that you can become digital marketing experts in your spare time is, you know, it's a little bit unrealistic and overwhelming. So if you get confused, I don't blame you one bit. It is confusing. And so, you know, reach out to me with questions, or when you get more established, if you have the budget to outsource any of this, even to, you know, one of my students, for example. I've got students that are working in industry that are experts in the field, and often they look to pick up side gigs. And so, you know, later on when your businesses get bigger, if you want to, you know, hire someone for $1,000 to put it together for you so that you don't need to spend all this time, it might be worth it. It's always my recommendation, if your budget allows for it, to hire an expert to get you off on the right foot can be a good start.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. Well, I'm going to just stop your share there, if that's okay.
Of course.
So I can see everybody here. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today and joining us. Like, so much. I know there's a lot of information, and overwhelming is definitely definitely the feeling I know I had when I entered into both those courses. But I liked your approach there. You know, take it, learn a little bit as much as you can. You know, don't think that this is something you all have to deep dive right away, because I'm still learning, and it's been, I think I finished my course with you 3 years ago, and I try to stay updated on this stuff. But yeah, it's like, I think we were saying this with a lot of our marketing and sales tactics. They're like muscles. You have to keep kind of using them, but that doesn't mean you have to spend all day, every day doing it. So this is amazing. Please refer back to this video, guys. I know there's a lot in there. And yeah, Liz, thank you for imparting this knowledge on us and sharing a snapshot of your course with us. It's been amazing. I want to give you a good send off here. We always like to do a big Leap Junction wave. If you have your camera off, please turn it on, and if you're able to. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure having met everyone, and I wish you all the best with your businesses. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay, you too, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Liz.
Bye.
Well, how's everybody's brains feeling right now? Sore? That's okay. Muddled is what Kelly said. Yeah, I feel you on that. It's a lot of stuff that it is, like she said, you know, I think each course is over 40 hours, right? So that's a lot of stuff to kind of take in, especially when a lot of the content's really new. But I definitely, as you can see, there's a lot of power in both those platforms for your business. And it doesn't matter whether you're a service or a product or what industry you're in. The data is there, the proof is there. Both those platforms will help you, and it's just another tool to kind of add to your bat belt there. You know, like it's a powerful one because you know, analytics is free, but it needs to be set up properly. But there's tons of guides out there, and there's also people you can hire if you want to run an ads campaign. Upwork is a great place to get started. You can vet a lot of people on there, you know, and you only have to run a campaign for whatever budget you want. You know, I definitely recommend not going less than $250 for a month. But when you're at that stage and ready, you know, you can always outsource it. You don't have to be, you know, the pro at everything. But the analytics side of it, I think each and every one of you should take some time to at least understand the basics and at least check in and do some reporting once you have traffic going to your site, you know, like maybe every quarter at minimum, having a look and seeing, you know, what's working, what's not, especially those of you who are doing actual sales direct through the website. You know, you want to know what's happening. You want to understand that really well. And then those of you who are looking, you know, the website's a way for them to contact you or sign up, you know, for email. So like Tyler, right? Events facility, you know, your website's going to be one of the main ways that people are going to find you, you know, decide whether or not you're for them. And then they're going to either call you or fill out a contact form. So it's important that those of you who need to sign up, I think there's a term you should all look up, and it's called gated content. Gated means that it's locked behind a gate, meaning you need to get their email address, you need to get their phone number in order for them to kind of move to the next stage. And that's a way that you can, you know, if you notice, Liz was talking a lot about having those goals and those conversions set up on analytics. If you don't have, like, you know, you're not like Max where you're selling a t-shirt online, the gated piece of content is giving them your email address or whatever other information you need. And that can be your goal conversion, because then you can see, okay, I put a post on Instagram about, you know, my facilities available for booking for the month of July. How many people actually went from Instagram, landed on my website, and then gave me their information? You only know the ones that actually maybe call you, right? Or said, I saw your the ones you talk to. So there's a lot of people that get lost in that shuffle. And you can actually go and look and say, okay, this many people went to the site, this many people filled out the form, but this many people left. Why did they leave? What was wrong? What did I not do right? Or what did they not understand? And That's how you start to kind of become a detective. And then when you figure out what's working, you just keep doing more of that over and over again. Does that make sense? Everyone sees the power in all this?
Yeah, no, it was, for me, I totally get what you're explaining. So it was very rewarding to have the session. So it was perfect. Like
Awesome.
2-3 new ideas totally came into my head during this. So it was great. So thank you.
No problem. I think this is one of those less glamorous sides of being a business owner. It's like doing your taxes or doing your bookkeeping, but it's just as important, right? So anybody have any other questions or anything else about the session, comments?
I have one, David. Was Liz kind enough to allow us to reach out to her as well if we had a question?
Yes. So
Okay.
Andre will be posting her profile later today, and then you guys can shoot her an email.
Somehow maneuvering through the Lawrence Kinlan School of Business, I didn't get a chance to meet and have Liz teach. So it was very rewarding to hear her talk. So I just wanted to reach out there. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Anybody else? No? Awesome. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording for this session then.